The entire country is seeing heavy rain with the annual monsoon season now underway. The Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters has activated a Level 1 emergency response. The government is set to unveil examples of extremely difficult questions on the country's college entrance exam that will be dropped from the test. That is to minimize the country's notorious private education spending. The Wagner Group's march on Moscow came to an end after a deal was brokered by Belarus. However, the U.S. says that the apparent immunity is a sign that cracks are appearing in Putin's leadership. South Korea is being pounded by heavy rain as the monsoon season began on Monday. And there is more heavy rain accompanied by strong winds and thunder in the forecast until tomorrow. For more, we have our Shin Ha-young on the line. Ha-young, fill us in.
Well, Tommy, as you've said, the monsoon season has begun in South Korea with Jeju Island and the southern region the first to be hit by torrential downpours. The Korea Meteorological Administration has forecasted that starting late afternoon Monday and continuing overnight, there will be heavy rainfall of 20 to 40 millimeters per hour in the Seoul metropolitan area. And rainfall exceeding 50 millimeters per hour is considered heavy rain, and at 20 millimeters per hour, it's hard for people to even see what's in front of them. And this afternoon, rainfall of 40 to 60 millimeters per hour is predicted for southern regions. And expected precipitation until tomorrow is 30 to 100 millimeters in the Seoul metropolitan area and Chungcheon region, and 50 to 150 millimeters in Jeju. And rainfall is expected to weaken after tomorrow, but it's likely we'll see more rain throughout this week.
Right, Ha-young. Now, accidents and damage caused by heavy rain have always been concerning. Then, how is the government working to prevent that?
Well, the country's Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure Headquarters has issued a Level 1 response, the lowest of 3 levels of action that can be taken during a natural disaster. And it has also raised the alert level from interest to caution. And this comes as a heavy rain alert issued on Jeju and the southern regions on Sunday and was expanded to Chungnam and Jeonbuk provinces in the early hours of Monday morning. And in order to prevent casualties and damage, the government is advising people to stay away from streams and rivers that are prone to flooding. And they should also refrain from visiting mountainous regions that are vulnerable to landslides. And on Saturday, President Yoon instructed relevant authorities to thoroughly prepare for damage caused by heavy rain, such as flooding in below ground level homes. And in response, authorities have instructed that swift evacuation is needed in case of flooding in places such as basement and underground parking lots. And that's all I have for now. Back to you, Dami.
All right, Ha-young, thank you for that report. Now, moving on, today, South Korea's Education Ministry is set to announce measures to tackle excessive spending on private education. With just 5 months until the nation's annual college entrance exam, the primary focus is the guidelines on dropping questions that involve material not covered at school. Authorities are set to clarify what those questions are by giving actual examples of so-called killer questions from recent years, along with ways to keep the level of difficulty without needing to have those questions. The move comes after President Yoon called for making a fair college entrance exam, citing those questions for pushing students to resort to cram schools. Authorities are also expecting cram schools for any cases of these schools making illegal profits out of killer questions, such as by recruiting examiners. South Korea is ranked 17th in the world in terms of logistics performance. According to the World Bank's latest Logistics Performance Index, which measures countries' ability to move goods across borders with speed and reliability, South Korea made it into the top 20 for the first time. It follows other Asian countries like Singapore, ranked at the top, as well as Hong Kong at 7th, and Japan and Taiwan in joint 13th. South Korea saw notable scores for customs performance, coming in 7th, and logistics infrastructure, where it came 9th. Those are largely attributed to the country's AI-based simplified customs procedures and upgraded facilities at seaports and airports. Marking the 73rd anniversary of the Korean War on Sunday, President Yoon said that neither the devastation caused by the war nor the veterans from South Korea and the U.S. should be forgotten. The president was speaking at a special exhibition for the 70th anniversary of the ROK-US alliance at the National Museum of Korean Contemporary History. Underscoring the importance of the ROK-US alliance, he pledged that the country will continue efforts to find the remains of the 120,000 Korean and 7,500 U.S. soldiers still missing since the war. Regarding the exhibition, he said the future generation is key for the ROK-US alliance, and it's important to remind them of the foundation and successes of the alliance. Now, the alliance was formed in October 1953 with the signing of the ROK-US Mutual Defense Treaty after the Korean War. President Yoon returned home from a week-long diplomatic trip to France and Vietnam. He also made a speech to boost South Korea's chances of hosting the 2030 World Expo. Our top office correspondent Oh Soo-young, who traveled with the president, joins us in the studio today to share the highlights. Good morning, Soo-young.
Hi, Dami.
So, Soo-young, let's start with President Yoon's economic diplomacy, a major feature of his trip, right? There were at least seven economic events, right?
You're exactly right. 7 events in the space of 6 days, a very packed schedule. And these were, there were quite a large number of business and trade events, as you said, particularly in Vietnam, where President Yoon was traveling with his biggest ever business delegation. That's his 205 corporate leaders, including the heads of Samsung, SK Hynix, LG, Lotte, among others. And well, first in France, Yoon and his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron during their summit agreed to increase cooperation in key high-tech industries such as space and aviation. At a separate business event, Yoon reaped something like $940 million in investment pledges for Korean firms. And that brought South Korea's foreign investment in the first half of this year to a record high of $16.5 billion. So a massive feat there. As for Vietnam, which is South Korea's third largest trading partner, Seoul signed nearly a dozen deals to make establishing and facilitating business easier for both sides, with MOUs on work permits, certificates of origin, driver's licenses. Those were all signed. But what I want to really stress here is going beyond simple trade and investment ties. The two countries agreed to set up a mineral supply chain center, and that's to help Seoul secure rare minerals that are crucial for latest digital technologies. So that was an impressive feat there. The two countries also agreed to work together on building smart cities and green energy infrastructure, as well as cooperation on sustainable development in Vietnam.
Right, and also on the diplomatic front, it looks like South Korea is trying to increase its network of partner countries. Then why are France and Vietnam so significant?
That's a really good question, Tammy. Well, as you said, multilateralism has been a key feature of South Korea's diplomacy. Ever since G7, it was quite clear that Seoul really wished to extend its reach beyond the usual 4 countries, which were the United States, Japan, China, and Russia. And this is to overcome shared challenges in areas such as security, economic uncertainty, the climate, and also digital transformation. And well, particularly during this time of very intense US-China rivalry, multilateralism can really help avoid a zero-sum game situation.
Korea's global outreach should cover a wide range of countries, including core middle power countries that have high visibility in global affairs. European Union carries substantial importance, especially with the global governance agenda such as international law, climate change, as well as multilateral diplomacy. The European Union also considers seriously about the China issues, but has shown more inclusive stance toward the region. It also highlights the multilateral engagement with China as well.
And in this regard, strengthening ties with France along with Germany a month ago, that was a very important move as they are both very much heavyweight countries in the EU. The same goes for Vietnam, really. Yoon said that he hopes that Seoul and Hanoi's ties will be a gateway for stronger relations with the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, otherwise known as ASEAN.
First, from the market-based perspective, Vietnam is a growing market largely made up of young people who are considered the early adopters in ASEAN. Secondly, as a production base, Vietnam is important, providing cost-effective manpower. Also, the strategic positioning of Vietnam is also crucial to engaging ASEAN, as Vietnam shares cultural similarities with Korea, also having Confucian roots.
The 11-member bloc has huge economic potential as one of the fastest growing areas in the world, but it's also riddled with regional tensions and developmental challenges that make its growth, that make sustainable and equitable growth rather difficult. And that's where South Korea could step in with collaboration. It could be a win-win solution for both sides to balance things out for ASEAN's population of over 666 million.
Actually, South Korea has been pitching itself as a partner for development, with President Yoon himself joining the bidding presentation for the 2030 World Expo in Paris, right? That was another highlight of his trip. Then how do Busan's chances look at the moment?
Well, I can certainly say that South Korea's pitch really stood out, obviously, with the presidential edge and also the power of K-pop, as artists like Psy and aespa's Karina were part of the presentation. South Korea's top conglomerate leaders, they were also doing their part, sharing how South Korea can contribute its own developmental experience over the last 20, 30 years and high-tech solutions to the world to build a brighter future for all world citizens. And given the positive reactions that were seen to that, these collaborative bidding efforts, experts say that this itself is worthy of celebration. Professor Lee, who we just heard from, said that whether or not Korea wins the bid in November, the process itself, the journey was significant.
A lot of global citizens and the government officers are listening and seeing what the leading Korean companies are doing, what kind of solution they are providing to the world citizen, and what kind of picture of the Korea's future will be shown. And I think that is another, the season 2 of Korea's global wave.
Really, so to wrap up, I think President Yoon's 6-day trip, it was really about opening up these gateways to Korea's growing trade and also multilateral diplomacy, really as President Yoon tries to make South Korea a global pivotal state.
Right, his efforts will undoubtedly continue. Thank you so much for your reporting throughout the trip. I hope you're not too jet lagged.
Oh, thank you, Tammy.
Russian President Vladimir Putin held talks with his Belarusian counterpart over the weekend over the Wagner Group's rebellion against Moscow. And Washington says Putin's leadership is being threatened. Lee Seung-jae reports.
After Wagner fighters had captured the Russian city of Rostov and came within 200 kilometers of Moscow, tensions de-escalated on Saturday as peace talks began. Citing Belarusian news agency Velta, Reuters reported that Russian President Vladimir Putin spoke with Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko for the third time in 2 days on Sunday. The talks come as Lukashenko apparently brokered a deal with the leader of the Wagner militia group to end a rebellion. In exchange, the Wagner group halted its approach to Moscow on Saturday and instead withdrew to Belarus. And despite saying that those who had taken part in the armed insurrection would be punished, as part of the agreement, the Wagner chief will face no action from the Kremlin. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Sunday that the brief mutiny by Wagner shows cracks in Russian President Vladimir Putin's role as a leader of the country.
So I think this is clearly, we see cracks emerging. This has been a devastating strategic failure for Putin across virtually every front, economic, military, geopolitical standing.
China also responded to the weekend's unrest, saying that it continues to support the efforts of the Russian leadership in stabilizing the situation. China's foreign ministry went on to add that the recent escalation in tensions in Russia was Moscow's internal affairs. Meanwhile, according to the Wall Street Journal, the U.S. has decided to keep current sanctions against the Wagner Group in place. This comes as the U.S. was initially going to add more sanctions against the militia group in relation to an ongoing mineral-related business in Africa, but that has been put on hold. Experts say the U.S. doesn't want to appear to be taking sides, making it clear that Washington does not support either the Russian government or the Wagner Group. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Turning our attention to football, South Korea on Sunday defeated Thailand 4-1 in the quarterfinals of the U17 Asian Cup, advancing to the semifinals. Now, that also means the Korean squad has earned a ticket to U17 World Cup. South Korea scored twice in the first half and twice in the second half to cruise past Thailand. Yoon and Kim Myung-jun were both on the score sheets and now share the lead for the most goals scored on the tournament with 4. South Korea will face the winner of Saudi Arabia and Uzbekistan in the semis on Thursday. We hear many tips for anti-aging, from medicine to supplements. None of them have been scientifically proven to be effective, but there are proven ways to achieve healthy aging. Our Kim Jung-sil reports.
From early in the morning, Professor Shin Jin-young is busy looking after patients. She and her research team at Konkuk University Medical Center recently found out that there are certain characteristics of aging shared by Korean people.
For people in South Korea, it's vital that one has physical and mental stability. And recently, we found out that social interaction within the community is very important for one's aging. This is not just in South Korea, but also in other Eastern Asian countries.
Professor Shin said simply eating together with neighbors could help senior citizens reduce depression and anxiety. Speaking of eating, though, what should we eat? And the answer is eat less.
The excess amount of calories we consume makes fat build up in our liver. That's why I tell my patients to generally eat a little bit less if possible.
Another key factor for healthy aging, exercise.
At around 70 years of age, our muscles decline about 20% from when we were in our 30s. We also naturally gain body fat and become insulin resistant. And the only way to avoid these changes known so far is through exercising.
Here at the Konkuk University Sports Medical Center, many people are exercising in the early morning. Kim Dong-hyun has been working out for about a year.
I'm exercising to stay healthy, and my body feels lighter and younger after working out.
Other than eating healthy and socializing, experts say physical exercise can also improve cognitive function. One of the world's most renowned experts in healthy aging, Dr. Charles Brenner, recently visited South Korea and said it's important to keep our feet on the ground when it comes to anti-aging.
There's some people that have some unrealistic expectations that they're not going to age at all. I don't think that that's realistic, but I think that you can age better.
He added that mom's advice is the key, meaning good nutrition, good physical and mental activity, social engagement, and avoiding smoking, drinking, and overeating. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Matthew Ashley, and we now turn over to stories from around the world. Now we begin in Greece, where parliamentary elections over the weekend saw the country's ruling party win an outright majority. According to official results on Sunday, from almost 96% of voting centres, the Conservative New Democracy Party clinched just over 40% of the vote, giving them 158 seats in the 300-seat parliament. Now, the party's leader, Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis, had called the election to try to win that majority after falling a few seats short in a previous election in May. Now, the sitting Prime Minister ran on a platform of increasing salaries, reducing inequality and providing better and free public health care. Moving over to Sweden, one person has died and 9 others were injured on Sunday after a rollercoaster derailed. 3 of the wounded are in serious condition. According to eyewitnesses at the Gröna Lund amusement park in Stockholm, riders on the Jetline rollercoaster were sent to the ground after it partly came off its tracks. There were 14 people on board at the time. The 140-year-old park has been closed while the police conduct an investigation into the crash. The Jetline ride has a top speed of 90 kilometers per hour and reaches a maximum height of 30 meters. In the U.S. state of California, human remains have been found in an area where a British actor went missing half a year ago. According to reports, a group of hikers on Saturday morning discovered the remains in the San Gabriel Mountains near Mount Baldy. Actor Julian Sands went missing there in mid-January while hiking in bad weather. The remains have been handed over to the local coroner's office, and identification is expected to be complete by next week. Sands is best known for roles in the Oscar-winning film A Room with a View and The Girl with a Dragon Tattoo. He also appeared in TV dramas, including 24 and Smallville. And finally, the world's ugliest dog has been crowned. Meet Scooter, a 7-year-old hairless Chinese crested canine. The pup was given this year's title on Friday at the world's ugliest dog contest in Petaluma, California. Now, Scooter has an almost permanent droopy tongue that hangs outside his mouth and was born with deformed back legs. But he manages to get by using his 2 front legs. According to judges, it was Scooter's uniqueness and charm that won them over. Now held annually, the contest showcases dogs that have defied adversity and aims to promote adoption. Second place was taken by a 7-year-old Pekingese called Wild Thang, while third was claimed by a Chihuahua estimated to be 17 years old.
Good morning. Monsoon season, which came a few days later than usual, has begun nationwide. Well, usually southern regions are hit with monsoon rain first, but that's not the case this year. Heavy rain is soaking the country and expect to see heavier rain during the commuting hours today. Some southern regions were under heavy rain alerts, dropping 30 to 40 millimeters an hour of heavy rain. And rain will get more intense in the upper regions as the day goes on, with up to 100 millimeters of rain in store in central regions until Tuesday. Meanwhile, Jeju Island could see up to 200 millimeters with a strong wind advisory being in place. Well, Sunday was a super muggy one, along with showers. There will be heat reliefs this afternoon, going down 1 to 7 degrees lower than yesterday afternoon. This afternoon, highs in most parts will be in the mid-20s, Daegu topping out at 27, Daejeon at 25 degrees Celsius. Monsoon rain is in the forecast all through the week, with short breaks in between in central regions during the day, so let's just keep an umbrella handy. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Korea time.